Hello and welcome back to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. My name is John Kier, and joining me again, as always, is my co-host Austin Davidson from Long Island, New York.
Hello.
Week 4 is underway, and the Steelers come away with a big win over the Baltimore Ravens. Austin, 26-9. Oddly, it's the second Steelers win this season by that score. They won by the same score in Week 2 against the Minnesota Vikings. Uh, just what are your quick takeaways from that win today?
That interception, in quotations, that Ben Roethlisberger threw, still sitting very wrong with me. Next, the Le'Veon Bell is rusty narrative is over, at least I hope for most people. And the defense did just fine without Mike Mitchell, as expected, against one of the worst offenses in the league. So, what are your quick takeaways?
All in all, this wasn't a very clean or streamlined performance, but when you really start to think about it, it was a road game in Baltimore. The Steelers hadn't won there since 2012, hadn't won there with Ben Roethlisberger under center since 2010. I think you could say it went about as well as expected. So I think they've earned the benefit of the doubt there. Juju Smith-Schuster has clearly moved in front of Eli Rogers on the depth chart, and he performed pretty well today with 3 catches for 47 yards. And obviously, with Rodgers being an inactive, he was not on the stat sheet again and didn't return any punts either. So that's concerning on his end. And then lastly, the Steelers defense played a great collective game outside of a few runs after having a really rough game against another bad offense in the Bears. So all in all, pretty good performance for the Steelers. Normally we'd get right to the injury report, but the Steelers didn't really have any injuries. Mike Tomlin just mentioned some bumps and bruises. So when you consider the physicality and the nature of the Steelers-Ravens rivalry, this is quite good news, Austin. Don't you agree?
Oh, yeah. The only things that happened were Antonio Brown got bruised up for maybe 2 plays, and that was when Roethlisberger almost got him killed. But he came back, and he was fine. And then Bell got hurt for like 1 play and then came back in, and I mean, those are stars, so that's scary, but they came right back in, so nothing long-term.
Yeah, I think they missed a combined 5 plays on the day, and they were all relatively early in the game, so nothing too bad there. Uh, we can get right into it. The Steelers win 26-9. The offense had maybe not a great day, but they probably had their best collective performance as a unit so far this year, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would agree, but I mean, offense just really means Le'Veon Bell. Bell accounted for just over 50% of the Steelers' offense in terms of yards in this game. It was fantastic, and it was great to see him back to form. Good timing, too, to give the Steelers an early lead in the division. But he's not the only running back to do some good things here. Watson converted a third down run early in the game, and I like seeing that. It was the only time he really showed up in the game, but he made it count. And then James Conner had a 23-yard run in this game. So while they didn't play much at all, they contributed something as well. So I enjoyed that. Next up, I'll talk about Roethlisberger, who did decently. No eye-popping stats, but he played well. And me and you, I think, both agree here that we're pretending that an interception never happened. It doesn't count. And we just look at it as Ben has thrown 5 touchdowns in the year and only 1 interception. So the only bad thing he really did today was miss 1 or 2 throws, and then he threw into triple coverage, as I said, and nearly got Antonio Brown killed. And then he also, probably the biggest, what upset most Steelers fans is that he didn't see Antonio Brown wide open on an early play, which I don't blame him for. He was literally releasing the ball as Antonio Brown was open, so he turned that way and already turned to the right. I don't blame him for that. Speaking of Brown was actually very quiet today, mostly because Bell took. Also, the Ravens had him in double coverage a lot of the day, but still, actually, bad day for him. Not even really decent for a normal receiver, as I like to compare his stats to. Wasn't the greatest, so. Luckily, everyone else contributed enough to keep the passing offense alive. Juju Smith-Schuster probably did the best of the receivers in my eye, catching 3 for 37, 47, not 37, including 1 for a touchdown. But he still keeps getting called for penalties, getting another one today. However, something I really want to talk about is that you mentioned earlier, he's already phased Eli Rogers out of the offense completely. The Steelers opted to take Justin Hunter over him and make him be inactive as a healthy scratch. That's really a shame. But back to players that played. Martavis Bryant and Jesse James had decent days as well, both getting 3 catches for over 40 yards. So decent days for them. And lastly, to wrap up the offense is the offensive line. And they had a pretty good day as well, even without Gilbert, only giving up 1 sack. And by Bell's numbers, I think we could say their run blocking improved at least a little in this game. However, what I did notice was right after I commended David DeCastro off the podcast, I actually texted John separately just to talk about it. I commended him for not getting as many penalties this year as he did last year. And he got 2 that I could remember here, so that was disappointing. One more thing, I was thinking of penalties. 7 out of the 8 penalties were on offense. And as John kindly found for me, at least 6 of them were on the offensive line. I think 6 of them were, and then 1 was on Juju Smith-Schuster because Smith-Schuster got 1. But so 7 of the 8 were on offense, which is awful. And the Steelers really need to fix this penalty bug that they got going. They just can't seem to shake it. So what did you see in the offense today?
Austin, for the fans who might not know what we're talking about, with the Ben Roethlisberger interception, essentially, I believe it was the first. I think it was the opening drive of the second half, right? Wasn't it?
Yes, I believe so.
So it's a 3rd down. Roethlisberger completes a pass to Antonio Brown, who immediately gets tackled. And as he goes down, he kind of spins, hits the ground, and then the ball pops up in the air, and the Ravens defender grabs it out of the air and runs to the end zone. Now, originally, this play was called. He was called down at the point where he was tackled. But upon further review, it looked like to me his knee and elbow were clearly down. So I should clarify. He took several steps. I believe he took 3 steps as he was right before he went to the ground. So I thought like you and I assumed that he was down at that point. The ball then popped out into the air, and the Ravens recovered it. Now, the question here was that the NFL, I guess the crew in New York, determined that Brown did not complete the catch because the whole completing the catch, getting tackled to the ground. I still don't know what a catch is in the NFL now. I'm more confused now than ever, and seeing that play just made me really scratch my head, especially because the Ravens ended up getting the ball on that play. They overruled the original ruling, and then the Ravens didn't score, so the Ravens got the ball. So I was very confused that if the Ravens didn't get the ball, they got the ball there. Why wasn't it a touchdown? So there were several confusing parts of that play sequence. What did you think about it?
I honestly, I was agreeing with the announcers of the game. It clearly looked like his knee was down. I didn't see ball movement. I guess in New York that there was something that I didn't see because they had different shots. They were saying that the announcers can only see what we see, and while New York has everything. So maybe I guess they saw the ball moving, so it wasn't a completed catch. But in my eyes, the ball didn't look like it moved till his knee hit the ground. That was the issue that I had with it. Hit the ground with his knee, and that's when the ball moved from the momentum of hitting the ground. And then he flipped over and threw it by accident. It wasn't like he meant to do it, but he threw it to Eric Weddle, and I was very, very angry about it. I was in full agreement. The Ravens wasted a challenge. Good. They don't have timeouts. They need that for a comeback anyway. Only to be spat in my face that no, it actually is an interception. I mean, I guess it could have been more unfortunate if they didn't blow the play dead. It could have been a pick six, but it was still. I think the Steelers should have been able to punt. I believe that was third down, right?
Yes.
That was third down. Yeah, okay. The Steelers should have been able to punt there, and the Ravens wouldn't have been guaranteed points. Basically, I was really mad about it. I don't understand what New York saw. I'm hoping for Dean Blandino to give an explanation later this week or soon, maybe. Maybe that they saw something we didn't, or maybe try to explain a catch for like the 100th time, because like you said, I don't think anyone gets what a catch is anymore. So that's what I thought. But back to your preview of the offense.
Just one last part. I would have understood it if the original play had been called an interception. That would have been one thing, but the fact that it was called incomplete first really made it strange that they overturned it. But in any case, off our tangent from that little play, just wanted to explain it to the audience who might not have seen the play. Yeah, I'm in complete agreement with you. This is probably the Steelers' most complete offensive game this year. The running game was absolutely at its best today. With Brandon Williams, the good nose tackle for the Ravens, out, the Steelers attacked the Ravens' weakness with repeated success, and Le'Veon Bell finally had some running room in this game. As you mentioned, James Conner and Terrell Watson each had carries on the first drive as well, getting them all involved. Watson had one carry for a first down, and Conner had the longest carry of the game at 23 yards on a 2nd and 18. It was just, all in all, was a pretty good day for the running game. Not a ton of room and a lot of runs that weren't successful, but they played their best so far, and they made sure that they weren't going to give the Ravens a chance to have the ball for longer than they did. The Ravens definitely lost a time of possession battle in this game. Through the air, Ben Roethlisberger had another solid day again. I feel like there weren't as many poor throws or bad decisions made. His interception, if you will, was what I considered to be a poor excuse for a bad call, and I don't consider it a true interception, even if the stats say so. But again, I guess we'll have to hold judgment on that for the next couple days. But I'm still frustrated with that. Otherwise, he was good, not great, but I think the game plan was to run and not let the Ravens get potentially some big splash plays like they generally seem to do against the Steelers in Baltimore. Uh, Again, outside of that one pick, if you will, he didn't really give the Ravens any chances to pick it off aside from one dumb throw to Antonio Brown where he got hurt on the play. Uh, I guess the only real complaint I have aside from penalties is that I was kind of disappointed with the play calling on first down, particularly in the second half. The Steelers were running the ball a lot on first down, and I mean a lot. I feel like this was the case, but I could have been wrong. It seemed like every single first down the Steelers had in the second half, they ran the football. And like I get that they're trying to establish the run, they're trying to prove a point, they're trying to establish the run. I get all that, but I feel like one play action fake on first down wouldn't have hurt. Just something different. Maybe those early runs would have been more successful had you mixed in a couple passes every now and then, because by the end of the game, every one of their mothers knew what was coming on first down. It was going to be a run. But maybe that is nitpicking for an offense that played against a pretty darn good defense today and still managed to put up 26 points. So you know what? It's still a solid day for them, so I am pretty pleased with that. On the other side of the ball, the Steelers went up against the 32nd ranked offense in the league, and they didn't really disappoint, did they, like they did last week?
Honestly, I think they did it about as good as I hoped. The only problems I saw were really the two huge runs by Alex Collins, but that's being nitpicky because while the Ravens' offense is kind of bad, not kind of, they are really bad. They're the worst, but they're still professional players for a reason. The Steelers had 3 turnovers and 4 sacks, so can't really be mad. I should just enjoy this victory, but what kind of analysis would that be? So many players had big days here, namely Ryan Shazier, Cameron Hayward, and Mike Hilton all had fantastic outings. Then not so much on the stat sheet, but Tua had a great game as well, getting pressure on Joe Flacco a lot. So he had a pretty good day as well. So after all the compliments have been paid now, let's talk about some of the complaints. Like I said, they gave up those 2 huge plays to Alex Collins, one for 23 yards and one for 50 yards. And while for most of the day they had the run game locked up, they still gave up those big plays, and it's hard to ignore when it seems like they've given up huge plays to running backs 2 weeks in a row now. So that's a little rough to see, but they're also lucky that both Flacco and Rashad Perriman are pretty bad, because Flacco slightly overthrew a wide open Perriman, would have had a touchdown if he just reeled it in. And the Steelers defense got lucky there because no one was in the area. But other than that, I don't really have much else to complain about. I felt like coverage was decent for most of the game, and pass rush was actually pretty great, as expected. So, all in all, a good outing for the defense. So, what did you see from the defense this game?
I saw pretty much the same thing. Just as far as Joe Flacco goes, he did have one other pass that really should have been caught by Mike Wallace. He led the Ravens in receiving yards with 6 for 55 yards. He could have had another big catch, though. I remember he had some separation between Artie Burns that he dropped, but for the most part, the Ravens receivers they weren't getting open, and Joe Flacco didn't really have time to get them the ball. Typically, the Ravens have had offensive success against the Steelers with the zone running game to the wide sides and the play action fakes off of that. And as you mentioned, minus the 23-yard gain Alex Collins had on the first play of the game in that 50-yard run in the third quarter, I believe, the Steelers did keep the running game in check. And Flacco, who lost another offensive lineman due to injury in the game, I think he returned. I forgot his name. I think it was Stanley. Was that his name? I think it was.
I'm not actually sure.
In any case, it was a rough day for the Ravens' offensive line. Aside from those 2 plays on the ground, they really had no chance against the Steelers' defensive front. I think the entire defensive line got in the backfield several times on running and passing plays. TJ Watt got back there once. Bud Dupree had a massive hit on Joe Flacco, and he was pressured several other times. 3 turnovers forced on the day and only 9 points surrendered is absolutely a great day against any NFL offense. On top of the fact, you consider the way the Ravens were gifted their first 3 points on that interception we talked about. Flacco needed 31 completions to reach 235 yards. That's a terrible completion average right there. So all in all, pretty good day for the Steelers defense. Definitely a big rebound day after having an awful, awful game against the Chicago Bears. Also, the tackling was a lot better today. I don't really remember any key missed tackles outside of maybe a couple, but all in all, they definitely improved from their performance last week. Moving on to the special teams, not much to talk about. This was kind of a draw, in my opinion. Both kickers missed a field goal. Both punters were relatively average. They both had punts down inside the 10-yard line. The return games were pretty similar, I believe. Nothing too outstanding for either side here.
Yeah, I only have really 2 things to say about special teams. First is that Boswell has got to hit those 44-yard field goals. He's never called upon to kick long ones. At least I feel that way. I feel like they're always under 50 yards. So he's got to consistently hit those easy ones. But I'm sure it was just a mistake, so I can't really blame him all that much. Secondly, I felt much more comfortable seeing Antonio Brown doing punt returns again. Eli Rogers has quite literally been phased out of every part of the game now that he was listed as inactive for this game. So I feel like that's just, I don't know, it feels so weird. It felt like last year, I felt like Eli Rogers was a diamond in the rough, but I guess that the Steelers just don't see much in him anymore. But what do you have to say about special teams?
Well, regarding Rodgers, I think maybe this is kind of a week-by-week basis sort of thing. We'll have to see how things continue as the season moves along. I have to think that he had a pretty big year last year, and yeah, him and Ben aren't always on the same page, but I feel like we haven't heard the last of Eli Rogers yet. So I will say that for him. And then outside of that, special teams, like I said, not much to say. Boswell missed that 44-yard field goal that he really should be making, but I'll give him a pass because we're all human, and he was bound to miss one of those at some point this year, even if he only misses a couple. There was a game in 2013 where Sean Swisham missed 2 30-yard field goals in the same game, but those were the only kicks he missed the entire year. So, hey, it's going to happen, and if it's going to happen, make sure it's in a game right like this one where missing one kick isn't the end of the world, as opposed to another game. So I was pleased with their performance. So we'll move on from our game recap to our award and standouts section of our podcast. So we'll start, as always, with the big stop of the week, and I'm going to actually kind of give it to 2 players here, and it's the interception that Ryan Shazier had of Joe Flacco, the first interception of the day. It was actually thanks to pressure from L.T. Walton. Shazier was dropping back into coverage on Benjamin Watson, and Walton was chasing after Flacco. He was practically untouched heading into the backfield. And Flacco just let it go. And Shazier was just turning his head around before all of a sudden the ball was there. And this was a big play because the Steelers they weren't reeling per se, but the Ravens had all the momentum. They had scored 9 straight points, and they were in position around midfield to maybe score more points. And any score there would have made it a one-score game. So who knows what happens if the Ravens even add a field goal at that point. So the pressure by Walton and the pick by Shazier, co-winners this week, have earned the Big Stop of the Week award for Week 4 for their key interception of Joe Flacco. Who is the stronger than steel player of the week, Austin?
The player of the week this week was really hard to pick, actually, for the first time. What it boiled down to was difficulty. And for that, it became, for 191 scrimmage yards and 2 touchdowns, Le'Veon Bell is the player of the week. Frankly, he was up against 3 other defensive players, in my opinion. And what really boiled down to is the offense had a much more difficult challenge than the defense. Even without with a lot of the I can't get it out. Ravens defensive line being out or injured, it's just that he still had the harder job. With their secondary still comes up to stop runs and stuff like that. And their linebackers like C.J. Mosley are still really good. So that's what it boiled down to. But Shazier, Hilton, and Hayward were all in it for what they contributed. So congratulations to Le'Veon Bell for Player of the Week. So who got the play of the game?
All right, well, we had a couple plays here, but I'm going to go with the one that you suggested, and that is the forced fumble by Ryan Shazier and Cameron Hayward on Alex Collins. Austin, do you remember the specifics of that play? Because I remember it was the first turnover of the game for the Steelers, and I actually thought Cameron Hayward forced the fumble. I know he wasn't credited with it. At least I don't believe he was, but I seem to recall him being the one that actually forced it out, and it led to, I believe it led to the Juju Smith-Schuster touchdown?
I think so. I honestly, I can't say with 100% certainty that happened, but yeah. But what happened on the play was Shazier shot into the backfield and spun Collins around, and that's where it got confusing. The announcers and NFL.com credited Shazier with the forced fumble. To me, it looked like Cameron Hayward got his arm in as soon as he flipped, and Cameron Hayward knocked it out and then fell on it. So that's really what happened in what I think. But so it really was collaborative between Shazier for firstly spinning him around and getting him jarred at first, and then Cameron Hayward swatting the ball down and then landing on it. So, yeah.
Alrighty, well, that is the stronger than steel play of the week. So now we can move on to our specific player spotlight. So we'll start with one player on the Steelers who impressed you this week.
I'm going to go with Mike Hilton. He's the only one that I didn't quite expect to have a big game here on defense, and he had a big game in a big way, getting his first career sack and interception. So that was very impressive for him to step up, even against the worst offense. So who impressed for you?
I was impressed with the rookie Juju Smith-Schuster. The 20-year-old now has 2 touchdowns and apparently has phased out Eli Rogers from the starting position in the slot. Take away his penalties this year, and I think the Steelers have found themselves a real weapon in the slot. I've been impressed with his play so far this year. Conversely, who disappointed you on the Steelers this week?
I had to give it to Vance McDonald. Yes, he would have had his first catch had there not been a penalty on the play, but all I remember is that one throw that hit him straight in the chest on a perfect pass from Roethlisberger and dropped it. Fortunately, the 49ers are now 0-4 after losing to the Cardinals in spectacular fashion in overtime. So at this rate, the Steelers wouldn't have lost in the trade still because the 49ers might finish as the worst team in the league. So who disappointed for you?
For me, it was Chris Hubbard on the offensive line. He had a pretty rough day, including 2 penalties that derailed Steelers drives, specifically the first one. I don't know if you heard, but that was actually the longest drive in the NFL this season.
I did. I was listening when I was watching when he said that.
10 minutes and 23 seconds and 16 plays, and the Steelers were unable to score 7 points because of a Chris Hubbard penalty. Look, he wasn't terrible, but he's had three costly penalties now in 2 games, and he's got to be better with that. And I know it's a larger overarching penalty problem that the Steelers need to address, but the offensive line was a particular issue this week, so that's something that they and Hubbard need to work on. Last things last, I guess, for the game. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we move on to news and other things going around in the NFL?
Nope, not for any thoughts on this game.
I'll just say that it's a huge win for the Steelers. They're now 2-0 in the AFC North, 3-1 on the season. It's we're already a quarter of the way through the regular season. I know it goes fast, and the Steelers have to like where they are right now. There's only one undefeated team left in the NFL. The Steelers. What are the other top teams in the AFC right now? The Bills are leading the AFC East at 3-1. We'll get to that in a little bit. The AFC West, the Broncos are 3-1, and the Chiefs are 3-0. So the Steelers are right up there amongst the AFC's top teams, despite having all those problems that we talked about over the past few weeks. They haven't played their best football, but here they are, right at the top of the AFC again, and they're in position to make a run, especially with some soft teams coming to Pittsburgh over the next couple weeks. So I think that's something to be encouraged about. So now, before we move into looking at the rest of the NFL this week, let's do a quick pick'em for next week's Thursday night game. It's the New England Patriots at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Patriots coming off a 33-30 loss to the Panthers, and the Buccaneers coming off a win against the Giants. You remember the score there?
It was 25-23.
That's right, another game-winning field goal. The Giants are 0-4. The Pats are 5-point favorites on the road. Who do you got?
I have the Pats covering. Who do you got?
I also have the Pats covering. What is our overall from this Sunday so far? Right now, Austin and I are both 7-9. We'll both get one if the Colts lose by less than 13. Just a quick scoring update on that game. The Colts are now trailing to the Seahawks 18-15 with just over 6 minutes left in the third quarter. That's been a barn burner for sure. I don't know if you've been watching that game.
It's actually going on in the background, and Russell Wilson just got picked as you said that. So, on a really nasty pick. But before this, Russell Wilson ran for a 30-yard touchdown. I've been watching it as we've been podcasting, and it's been really incredible. Honestly, I didn't know the Seahawks were this bad that they're gonna lose. That the Colts are keeping up with them like this. So, I don't know.
Wow, the Colts are at the Seahawks' 24-yard line with a chance to go up. Jacoby Brissett has played well this year. I will say that.
Yeah, he really has. There's been talks about, sorry to go off on a tangent, but there's been talks about trading one of the quarterbacks and flipping him after this season, because with arguments for both that Luck has upside and he's been a good quarterback, in my opinion, overrated, but and Brissett has had experience behind Brady and learned from him and has shown really good things. It's a little too early to really talk about that, but it's an interesting argument to say the least.
Yeah, I don't think it has any momentum right now, but it depends on the A, injury length of Luck, and B, how well Brissett plays. For the time being, though, it's interesting to see that the Colts and Seahawks are playing such a close game when the Colts have only beaten the Browns this year. Speaking of the Browns, they got whipped by the winless Bengals, 31-7.
That was really rough. It was really bad for them. I was really on my prediction. I honestly thought the Browns had gotten better this year. I honestly thought that they were finally going to be a 7-win team. Pushing 7. I thought they would have had 6 wins, pushing 7. Unless they suddenly pull it together out of nowhere, I think that was very, very wrong. I just don't understand. It feels like they have the pieces to be mediocre, but they're just bad. They're just really, really bad. What do you think?
Yeah, they're disgusting. If anything, it just tells more about how badly the Steelers play on the road early in the year. In any case, we can move on to the rest of the NFL news. The Bills, coming off of a 23-17 upset win in the Falcons' new stadium, are now leading the AFC East and are in sole possession of first place thanks to the Patriots' 33-30 loss to the Panthers thanks to a Graham Gano field goal as time expired. Uh, Now that they've beaten the Broncos and Falcons in back-to-back weeks, are the Bills serious contenders in the AFC playoffs?
No. I learned this by looking it up. Falcons often play down to their opponent, so doesn't that sound a bit familiar? Any case, and I think the Broncos shot themselves in the foot almost as much as I believe the Bills really fought for that victory. I give it a few more weeks and the Patriots will be right back on top. The Patriots just need to figure out what's wrong on defense, because that's really what's losing them these games. It's their defense is just putrid as of late. It doesn't make sense, but I feel like they got better in the offseason before the season started, so I don't know. But back to the hand. Do you think the Bills are contenders?
No, they're the Bills. The hype train has rolled in Buffalo well before the playoffs, whenever they've played well. So that means going back to 2011 when they were like 5-2, or 2008 when they were like 4-1. No. The Bills are not making the playoffs. They always fall flat on their face. It will happen again. So I'm fully believing that. Conversely, another 3-1 team, the Rams, are coming off a big upset win over the Dallas Cowboys and are leading the NFC West, even if Seattle, who's currently playing, wins tonight. Are they a contender? And which 3-1 team are you more surprised about, the Rams or the Bills?
I'm going to start with the second question first. I'm going to say the Bills. The Rams have always had the defense to be a good team, and with former Broncos defensive coordinator Wade Phillips, I really think he brought them together to make them a good unit, as they should be. Also, I'm not surprised that Todd Gurley is back to how he was in his rookie year. However, the Bills are kind of like an anomaly. I don't understand how they're performing well at all. I feel like they don't have any really great pieces. However, they're still taking down teams like the Broncos and Falcons. It's just so weird. And then, do I think the Rams are contenders? That's a hard one. If you asked me last week, I would have said they're overrated, and no. I think I'm joining the Rams train. I think this might be a playoff team. With Seattle, I'm not saying that they're going to be good in the playoffs. With Seattle performing as bad as they are, I think the Rams have a legitimate shot at winning the division, because not only that, the Rams are like the Seattle Seahawks kryptonite. The past 4 years, the Rams have won at least one on them, I believe. It might have only spanned 3 years, but even when the Rams are bad, they just find a way to beat the Seahawks, and in weird fashions, too. One time they beat them on a fake punt, and that was enough to bring them over the edge. It's just weird. So the Rams might be the winners of the NFC West later this year. And while that might happen, I don't think they would get far in the playoffs. I feel like they'd be a one-and-out team, or maybe beat the first team they're up against and then immediately get crushed in the second round. But I think they might actually beat a playoff team, which is surprising. What do you think?
Well, I'm definitely going to agree with you there. If you look at the NFC West, let's eliminate the 49ers. We don't need to talk about them. The Cardinals are without one of the best players in the NFL, in David Johnson, and they clearly are not as good a team without him. They just struggled to beat the Niners today. I don't think the Seahawks can win the NFC West since they don't play with an offensive line. They consistently play and field offensive lines that aren't worthy of NFL players. So I guess you might have a legitimate argument in saying that the Rams are the most complete team in that division right now. Time will tell, but I definitely think the Rams are the more legit team right now, all in all. So around the rest of the league right now, Austin, we already know the Steelers won 26-9. Scoring update in the Seahawks game, the Colts just converted that interception into a field goal. So we're all tied up there at 18 apiece. The Packers, as we talked about last time, won 35-14. Just some news from that game. Danny Trevathan, the Bears linebacker, was suspended 2 games for his hit on Devontae Adams. What do you think about that?
I think it was deserved. That was a very vicious hit, as we decided. We both said. I've also, this is kind of messed up to think about, but rest in peace, my fantasy team. In that game, I lost 3 players. I own Danny Trevathan in fantasy because I do IDP. I own Devontae Adams. I own Ty Montgomery. And while Ty Montgomery's injury has been revealed to not be so bad, just rest in peace, fantasy team, in dreams. What do you think about the 2-game Danny Trevathan suspension?
I think I would have been okay with a 4-game suspension. That was a very nasty hit. That's just something you got to be careful with. But I guess 2 games is okay, so we can move on from that. There was another game in London this week, and it was another stinker. The Saints put up 20 points. The Dolphins put up 0 points for the second week in a row. It's the first shutout in Wembley Stadium's history for an American football game, if you will. What's wrong with the Dolphins? Are they ever going to score points?
What's wrong with the Dolphins is Jay Cutler. That is really it. Jay Cutler isn't asked to do much. I honestly can't say I watched this game or really looked at much highlights, but when I saw that, I was like, how do you not get any points against the Saints defense? That is the first time as well that Payton has had a shutout under his coaching. So it was just really bad for the Dolphins offense. Well, I thought the Saints were going to win. I didn't think like that. I enjoy that the NFL is shipping all the bad games to London. I mean, not all of them, but the really bad ones. Like 46-7, I believe that was the Ravens-Jaguars score.
44-7.
44-7. And then this one, 20-0. But Jay Ajayi also hasn't really been getting going this year, and it's kind of surprising and weird. I feel like Jay Ajayi was like an anomaly last year, and he was the next best thing for the Dolphins, and even he hasn't gotten going. So I guess I can't really blame Jay Cutler for everything. But, I mean, it's still Jay Cutler, and he's bad. He is really bad. I feel like the Dolphins might want to start looking into other quarterbacks even this early. I mean, I know it's early in the year, but we already know what Jay Cutler is like. This is not new for Jay Cutler. This is not like, oh, wow, this quarterback has been good for several years, and now he's declining. Like, no, Jay Cutler's been bad for a while, and he's just performing like he has been for a while. So I think the Dolphins should try out other quarterbacks. I don't even know who the backup is currently for them.
Matt Moore. What's wrong with Matt Moore?
Oh, you're right. How could I forget Matt Moore? He played in the playoff game. But Matt Moore showed better play in that game than Jay Cutler has been. So why not throw out Matt Moore? I don't know. But what do you think of that game?
Matt Moore is a far superior quarterback to Jay Cutler. And if you want to deny that, you can, but you're wrong. That's all I have to say about that. You can try to defend Jay Cutler, maybe even as far back as 2013. You'd be right, but for the past three going on 4 years now, he has been a shell of the, above average at best quarterback that he was at one point in his career. So he's not good. So beyond that, we already talked about the Bills' 23-17 win over the Falcons. The Jets, winners in overtime over the Jaguars. That game nearly finished in a tie. That was an ugly, ugly game. Just want to bash the NFL a little bit more for their stupid overtime rules. I absolutely hate the NFL's overtime rules. They're so stupid and pointless. Why would they change the time from 15 minutes to 10 minutes in overtime? That means there's going to be more ties, just like there almost was in this game. Because that's what everyone wants, is more ties. It's so stupid. I don't know why they don't have any type of rules similar to college football, where overtimes are far more exciting and pivotal. That's all I'm going to say about that game. Is there anything worthy of noting in this game?
I just wanted to say that I called it. I knew it was like the Jaguars type thing to lose this to the Jets right after beating the Ravens so bad. I just wanted to give myself props that I called the Jets winning like right before we were going over it. Other than that, I don't understand why tying is still a thing in football. I feel like the game should just go until someone wins. I mean, I guess it could come to a stalemate for a while, but I don't know. I just feel like ties in the NFL when there's only 16 regular season games, it's weird. I feel like ties should just be eliminated altogether, but that's just my thoughts. So let's hear about the next game.
Lions 14-7 winners over the Vikings, just a defensive struggle. I really don't have anything to say there.
Yeah, I don't have anything to say either.
Panthers, Graham Gano, the game-winning kick over the Patriots. We talked about their bad defense. I'm good with this game.
Me too. Just to keep an update, the Seahawks just got another touchdown to some running back I don't actually know. His name is covered by his dreads. It's McKenzie? Maybe? McKenzick? Something like that.
Huh. Interesting. Moving on, the Rams 35-30 over the Cowboys. We discussed that. Texans hung up 57 points on the Titans. Mariota left with an injury in that game. Deshaun Watson, an NFL rookie record 5 touchdown passes. Or no, 5 total touchdowns, I believe.
Oh, yeah, it was really impressive. I mean, without Mariota, the Titans are kind of nothing, but still, it was impressive. But I really wanted to quickly go back because I forgot about it. Back to Vikings-Lions. Rookie Dalvin Cook, who's been pretty impressive this year, probably tore his ACL and is probably out for the year. So that's our depressing loss. Also, going back to another game because I remember the injury. Falcons and Bills. Julio Jones left with a hip injury halfway through the second quarter. So that's also worrying as well. So 2 big injuries in those 2 games.
Indeed. Wrapping up this week, the 4 o'clock games, the Cardinals won 18-15 with an impressive overtime touchdown by Larry Fitzgerald. The Eagles held on with a close win over the Chargers. I know, a surprisingly close loss for the Chargers. Where else have we seen that? They got booed coming out of the tunnel in their home stadium. That's funny.
That's awful.
The Buccaneers sent the Giants to that deathly 0-4 start, so it looks like we can kiss the Giants goodbye this season. The Broncos defeated the Raiders, who nearly made a comeback with E.J. Manuel. Derek Carr had back spasms and left and did not return in that game. Just anything notable from these 4 games?
Nothing that I can really think of off my head. Just that I got scared for the Raiders for a moment. When Carr went down, I felt really bad for them, and they're going to lose him again this year. But they already determined that it was only, like you said, back spasms, and he'll probably be ready for the next game. So,
alrighty, and obviously we'll be paying attention to tonight's game, and tomorrow night's game is the Washington Redskins at the only undefeated team left in the NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs. Just like everyone expected, right?
Yeah, just like everyone expected. And the Pats were going to be 2-2 and not 18-0.
Amazing, right? They could easily be 3-1 right now. Or sorry, 1-3. 1-3.
Yep.
Wow. The NFL season is a wild one for sure. But last thing before we wrap things up is that the Steelers will be back home hosting the Jaguars next week, so we'll bring you that preview episode at the end of the week. So, Austin, is there anything else you wanted to say before we finish tonight?
Nope, nothing else.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight on this lovely Sunday night. It is the 1st of October. Hard to believe that we're already through September now. If you have any questions about the show or you want us to answer questions about what we think about the Steelers or questions about the Steelers, email us at strongerthansteelpodcast@gmail.com. Check out our various social media pages. We are on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Respectively, that's stronger _steel _NFL. Facebook, that's at Stronger Than Steel Podcast, and Twitter, it's at Stronger _Steel. We post our episodes on SoundCloud and YouTube under the same name, and we have our website, strongerthansteelnfl.blogspot.com. Austin, thank you again for joining me today. It was a wild week of football, but I'm ready for bed.
Yeah, man. Just quickly, Bobby Wagner just got a fumble return for a touchdown, so on Jacoby Brissett.
Wow, so it looks like that game could quickly be heading the wayside. It's 31-18 now with the point after coming in. Seahawks, 21 points in the third quarter right now.
Yeah, that's insane.
Well, maybe the Seahawks aren't quite dead yet, but hey, who knows? There's still a whole quarter to play.
Yep.
It's the NFL. We're so happy it's back, and the Steelers are sitting atop the AFC North thanks to another big win over their hated rivals in Baltimore. Until next time, take care, Steeler Nation.
Good night.